Welcome to the UK news on September 24th in 2021. Today we have to start with the gas crisis again. The British government is raising money to counteract the CO2 bottleneck in the country. How much London pays the US company CF Industries to restart its fertilizer production in northern England and thereby generate CO2 as a byproduct has not been made public. In any case, it's a matter of millions, and the government wants to cover the costs for the next 3 weeks. After that, the company would have to work economically again itself, they said. The British Economy Secretary Kwasi Kwarteng held crisis talks with the US company after it shut down operations. As a result, carbon dioxide for the food industry and healthcare threatened to become scarce. Carbon dioxide is a byproduct of fertilizer production. The US operator's two plants supply 60% of the CO2 required in Great Britain. Food companies had sounded the alarm that their CO2 stocks would only last about 10 days. According to this, there was a threat of supply bottlenecks for meat, packaged fresh goods, fizzy drinks, and baked goods. CO2 is required, among other things, for stunning pigs and for vacuum packaging. CO2 is also needed in the health sector. The reason for the US operator to shut down its plants was the 250% increase in gas prices, which made fertilizer production unprofitable. Now the CO2 prices are also likely to rise significantly, which the industry is likely to pass on to consumers in the form of higher prices in the supermarkets. Together with the increased gas costs, which also affects households, expiring corona short-time work benefits and reduced social benefits, many people are worried, such as they should get through the winter. The Guardian wrote of an impending winter of discontent, an uncomfortable winter, borrowing from the name given to the British winter between 1978 and 1979, when strikes for higher wages crippled the country and ultimately the end of the then incumbent Labour heralded the end of the incumbent Labour government. And now let's go to a vaccine swap. With a vaccine swap, South Korea and Great Britain want to boost the fight against the coronavirus in their countries. As the government in London announced on Wednesday, Great Britain will send 1 million doses of the drug from BioNTech and Pfizer to the East Indian country in the coming weeks. This should help Seoul achieve the goal of 70% fully vaccinated residents by the end of October, the British Ministry of Health said in a statement. South Korea, on the other hand, should return the same amount before the end of the year. This delivery will then contribute to the success of the refreshment program in the UK, it said. The British government emphasized that the vaccines were not needed immediately at the moment. The amount is also not offset against the 100 million doses that Great Britain has promised the COVAX vaccine initiative by June 2022. Earlier this month, the UK government had already signed a similar deal with Australia. Even 4 million doses of vaccine are sent back and forth. In Great Britain, almost 90% of people over 16 have now received their first injection against the coronavirus, and a good 82% are fully vaccinated. For 2 months now, there have hardly been any restrictions, although the number of new infections is stagnating at more than 30,000 per day. And now let's go to a topic that's called cancelled. A meeting between the USA, France, Great Britain and Germany planned on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly has been cancelled, according to employees of the US State Department. As the insiders announced in a briefing with reporters in New York on Tuesday, the meeting originally planned for Wednesday could not take place due to scheduling reasons. There was no comment on whether the cancellation might be related to the current diplomatic tension between France and the US. The meeting was one of 3 planned gatherings at which, among others, US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian would meet for the first time since Washington and Paris got into a diplomatic crisis last week. Last Thursday, Australia, Great Britain and the USA announced an Indo-Pacific Security Pact. Among other things, the pact provides for Australia to build nuclear-powered submarines using technology from the two partners. This meant that the delivery of conventional submarines with a volume of 56 billion euros agreed with the French shipping company Naval in 2016 became obsolete. The European Union has already postponed preparations for a trade and technology talk with the United States in protest against the submarine business. EU Commission Chief Ursula von der Leyen described the deal as unacceptable. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas sided with France and warned of lengthy difficulties in the transatlantic relationship. And now we have to go to criticism. The controls of food from the European Union should only begin in July 2022, said Brexit Minister David Frost at the beginning of last week. This new schedule is pragmatic, he said. And he said, we want companies to be able to focus on recovering from the pandemic rather than having to deal with new demands at the border. This gives them more time to prepare, CNN quoted Frost as saying. The move is again being made because supermarkets in the UK are struggling to fill their shelves due to the pandemic and labor shortage caused in part by the country's exit from the European Union, according to CNN. Some EU workers have emigrated after Brexit, and farms, food processors and freight forwarders can no longer recruit workers from the European Union due to new UK immigration rules. The food and beverage industry criticized the government for the last-minute change, punishing companies preparing for the October 1st import regime and rewarding companies for ignoring the official guidance. The delay also gives EU manufacturers an advantage over British companies whose products will already be subject to full checks after Brexit when they are exported to Europe, it said. Yeah, and it's good that the EU protects its market. The repeated failure to implement full UK border checks on EU imports since January 1st undermines business confidence. Worse, it even helps UK competitors, said Ian Wright, CEO of the Food and Drink Federation, who pointed to the asymmetrical nature of border checks and warned that product shortages could be permanent. And now let's talk about one of the favorite things, passports, but more red than blue. Anyone entering the UK after October 1st needs a passport. The British Ministry of Transport has reminded of this, and I do that today too. I made a video a long time ago. This can be read on the ministry's website. A visa is still not required. An exception applies to those who are resident in Great Britain and who have settled status or pre-settled status. In this case, they may enter the country with their identity card until 2025, but only if they have received their status on the basis of this identity card. It should still be possible to leave the UK with an identity card after October 1st. The background of the new entry regulation is Brexit. That means the departure of Great Britain from the EU. And now we also have a premiere. The NFL will host an international combine in London for the first time. The start date is October 12th, as the league announced on Tuesday. The invitation event is designed to match the annual scouting combine that has been held in Indianapolis for the past few years and to help identify and evaluate potential talent for the NFL. Up to 50 athletes are selected and tested. The venue is the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. We are excited to host the International Combine in London next month, said Damani Leach, NFL Chief Operating Officer of International, in a statement to give the participants a chance to compete at the highest levels. Well, for the athletes, it is a question of possibly getting a place in the International Pathway Program. Said program was launched in 2017 and aims to give top international athletes the chance to train at the NFL level, improve their skills, and ultimately earn a place in an NFL squad. A well-known name from the program is fullback Jacob Johnson from Germany, who is currently in his third season with the New England Patriots. Following the International Combine, a certain number of athletes who have achieved specific performance standards will be invited to train for 3 months in the USA as part of the International Pathway Program. The best from this program will then be assigned to NFL teams for the 2022 season. Other names from the program who have made the jump to the NFL are Efe Obada from the UK, he's with the Buffalo Bills, Jordan Malaita from Australia, he's with the Philadelphia Eagles, and Sammy Reyes from Chile, he's with Washington. The closed event is the third of its kind. Previously, the NFL held similar international combines in Australia in 2018 and in Germany in 2019. There will also be an event in Mexico this October for athletes who were unable to travel to London due to travel restrictions. And now we come to a return after quite some time. The football clubs of the Premier League and the clubs of the second-grade championship in England are allowed to offer a limited number of standing places in the stadium under certain conditions from January 1st. The Sports Ground Safety Authority, the SGSA, which is responsible for safety in football stadiums, announced that on Wednesday. This step is part of a pilot project. To participate, clubs must apply by October 6th. The prerequisite is that spectators continue to have the opportunity to sit down in the standing area. This requires folding seats that must not be blocked. Each seat must be assigned to a person. In addition, the standing room should not restrict the view of other fans, for example those sitting in wheelchairs. If a standing license is granted, it is valid for a clearly defined area and initially only until the end of the season. The reintroduction of standing room has been discussed in England for years. For more than 25 years, football stadiums in England have been prohibited from providing standing room. The ban essentially goes back to the Hillsborough disaster in Sheffield in 1989. At the FA Cup semi-finals between Liverpool FC and Nottingham Forest, there was a crowd on an overcrowded grandstand in which 97 people were killed. And I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.